Jim Ratcliffe's 25% takeover of Manchester United was confirmed on Christmas Eve at 4 p.m. But 25%, that's the start. What United fans want more information on is the full takeover. What about the control of the Glazers? What about the decisions? What happens next? When does it happen? United fans want this information, and more of this information has now been released in a document filed to the Security and Exchange Commission out in America, because United are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. This is a legal document, and inside this document, there's more information on dividends, there's more information on control, decision-making, and a little bit of information on the process of a full takeover. What I'm going to do in this video is run through everything for you. It's complicated, it's convoluted, just like this entire whole takeover has been, and probably will still continue to be. But if you do learn something, let me know in the comments below, and if you can, drop a like on the video. As I said, we already know this part. This was the official statement released by the club about the 25% takeover by Jim Ratcliffe, equal Class A and Class B shares. Of course, the Class B shares are the ones that hold all the voting rights. But this longer document was released, as I said, pretty much like bang on the full-time whistle of United beating Aston Villa. It's something that United are obliged to do because we are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. We have to make this announcement to the Stock Exchange. That's exactly what this document does. Now, Telegraph have covered it, and I'm going to run through some of the details which allow us to understand a bit more about, A, what's kind of happened immediately and what will be happening in the future. And one really important, I think anyway, announcement straight away is that there will be no dividend payments for the first 3 years. Now, this is not something that the Glazers would have happily put pen to paper and signed. Bear in mind that they have used this club as a cash cow ever since they bought us in 2005. Over 750 million has left the club on servicing the debt. And check this. This is going to make you sick, unfortunately. By the time that this takeover is completed and ratified, the Glazer family would have taken out over 1.3 billion from our football club. 1.3 billion. And still they're the majority owner. And still our debt is around about the same as it was because they leveraged it on us. But this bit here is quite important. The reason I'm saying this is no Glazer now can use United as a cash cow. The only way that any Glazer from now on gets any money from Manchester United is if they sell. No more bond issues, share issues, anything like that. Ratcliffe's put a stop to that. That's a good bit of news, stage one. This is a more important piece of news. This is about control over the sporting decisions at our football club. Okay? We already know, we know from the official statement here that Ineos have been, quote-unquote, delegated responsibility, a.k.a. Ineos have demanded it, and that's how this takeover is happening. But Ineos are now the top of the tree, immediately. So while we've got to wait 4 to 6 weeks for the actual formalisation of Ratcliffe's 25% takeover, basically before he gets the keys, even before then, right now, if Joel Glazer and Avram Glazer decided, we're going to sack Erik ten Hag, let's go and do it, they don't have the ability to do that anymore. That is not their decision to take. They would have to knock on Ratcliffe's door and ask Jim if they can do it. No longer are the footballing decisions at this club controlled by the Glazers. And that has happened with immediate effect. And that's what put such a big smile on my face on Christmas Eve, and what I will still smile about. But the big question, of course, what about the full takeover, right? What is in place? Now, a good and a bad thing. A good and a bad thing, really. Number one, from the bad perspective, there's no formal process. Okay? There's not something written inside this agreement here, or just an announcement saying that by X date, if Jim Ratcliffe pays X amount of dollars for the shares, he can buy the rest of the club. There is no formal process, but he does have the first refusal on those shares. So, for example, if the Glazers received a bid from, I don't know, doesn't really matter who it is, any company in the world, Apple, comes in and wants to buy the rest of their shares, and they offer $40 a share, Jim Ratcliffe would have the ability to match that offer and buy the rest of those shares. If he was to say no, that's where this comes in, the drag-along rights, which is, I've been doing my reading, my research, I've spoken to a few people. Drag-along rights quite normal in situations where you get a majority and a minority shareholder, right? The concept of the drag-along is if the Glazers find a seller and Ratcliffe doesn't want to be part of it, he will have to sell his shares. He will be dragged along into that process. It's complicated. It's convoluted. This whole thing has just been an absolute... It's just not been enjoyable as a United fan to go through it all. But as it stands, there is not a formal process in place. And also, Jim Ratcliffe doesn't have the ability to simply go and buy Brian or Kevin or Darcy or Edward, the other four Glazers, doesn't have the ability to just go and buy their shares and sweep them up one at a time, which is, by the way, how the Glazers actually bought our club in the first place. Ironic that they're blocking that. Because if that happens, then this agreement, it's not that it would get torn up, but a new one would have to be drawn up about the conversion of the shares from Class B to Class A so they can be sold. So Jim Ratcliffe can't just go picking the Glazers off one by one. They've kind of protected themselves in that sense. When it comes to the actual percentage here, and this is an interesting part. I spotted this on Christmas Eve when we were doing the live show, and I was reading this, and I was like, I swear that says there, it talks about further shares being given to Jim Ratcliffe for that $300 million investment. And that is exactly what has happened. So by the end of January, by the time that the fit and proper owners test is done, he's given the keys, and that further $200 million investment dollars comes from Ratcliffe, he'll be given more shares. So his ownership will actually go above 25%. And then by the end of 2024, when he gives that other $100 million, it will go up even more. So by the end of 2024, Jim Ratcliffe will actually own 29% of Manchester United, not 25%. So already the process of buying more has happened. And it hasn't been sort of written into the official statement here, but that $300 million is going to be the first of, hopefully, many investments, which should mean that 29%, that's the way up, right? Now, in terms of finding any more information out, we're going to have to wait. This is the letter that Jim Ratcliffe has sent out to Manchester United fans saying, look, please note that with any deal, it's subject to the usual regulatory sign-off process. Therefore, we do not expect to speak publicly about club matters until after the deal has completed. So this information here, which we are getting from this document, which was released, as I said, to the Securities and Exchange Commission, because United are on the New York Stock Exchange, it's unlikely that we're going to get any more information until the deal is done. So maybe in 4 to 6 weeks, that's when we will be able to find out a little bit more about potentially what are Ineos going to be doing with the debt of our club. What plans do they actually have and ambitions in terms of dates around a full takeover? What's the overall vision of Ineos with Manchester United? This information I really do hope we find out once the deal is completely confirmed. But there is some good news here. No dividends within 3 years, and I'm telling you that will piss the Glazers off. That's been taken away from them. The Glazers already do not have the final say on decisions. We don't have to wait for it to be formalised. That's already happened. And while the process might not be in place formally for the full takeover to happen, Jim Ratcliffe has the first refusal. So if a bid comes in, he can match it and buy them out. And that's a good thing. And it's a start. And I know I've compromised here when it comes to this whole takeover process, when it comes to who I feel is the right owners and the wrong owners. But I'll tell you what the wrong owner was and what the wrong decision was to stay in the exact same position that we have been in for so long. And that's why I'm excited about what this could be. I'm nervous. I will scrutinize it to the nth degree, like I have said this entire time. But hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully this is the beginning of something different. And it's certainly the beginning of no dividends, of no control over footballing decisions. And let's see what happens with the full takeover and what comes next. Let me know what you think about this all. I know it's complicated. I'm trying my best to cover it for you as much as possible. Let me know what you think in the comments, as you always do.